Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I know a lot of you enjoy these stories at night, right before sleep. But before you nod off, drop a comment, tell me where in the world you're tuning in from, and what time it is for you. His wife went missing during their dream honeymoon, just days after they got married, vanishing without explanation. But then her husband zooms in on one of the wedding photos and notices something shocking. Liam Donovan slumped in the uncomfortable metal chair, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. This was his third interview at the Riverswood police station. In the past 24 hours, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the interview room. Across from him sat Detective Inspector Marcus Thorne, leading the investigation, flanked by 2 officers from the Regional Southern Isle Police Force. Mr. Donovan, Detective Thorne said, his voice calm but weary. I realize we've gone over this multiple times, but we need to revisit the timeline once more. Every detail might prove vital, especially now that the Southern Isle Police Force has joined the investigation. Liam nodded, rubbing his face with his palms. I understand. Whatever helps find Evelyn. Walk us through yesterday again. What time did you last see your wife? Liam took a deep breath. It was around 6:30 a.m. We were staying at Mountain Vista Lodge, that luxury resort by Lake Serenity. Evelyn had planned to attend the sunrise yoga session at 6:45 by the lake. She kissed me goodbye while I was still half asleep. He paused, the memory of her soft lips on his forehead, now a dagger twisting in his chest. And what were your plans for that day? Prompted Officer Ava Reyes, one of the regional officers. We had booked flight boarding on Lake Serenity for 10 a.m., followed by cliff jumping in the afternoon. Evelyn was really excited about both. She loves adventure sports. Liam's voice cracked on the present tense. After yoga, she was supposed to have a massage and facial at the hotel spa at 8 a.m. She was meant to be back in our room by 9:30 for breakfast. And when did you realize something was wrong? Detective Thorne asked, making notes in a small black notebook. Around 10 a.m. when she hadn't returned. I waited another hour, thinking maybe the spa treatments were running late. I tried calling her around 11 o'clock, but then I realized her phone was still in our room. Liam gestured helplessly. That's when I started to worry. Evelyn never goes anywhere without her phone. I went down to the front desk, asked about her. The staff checked with the spa, but they said she never showed up for her appointment. What did you do next? Officer Reyes asked. I asked them to help me search the resort. Staff checked everywhere. Restaurants, gardens, the beach, the gym. By 1 p.m., we couldn't find her anywhere, so I came here to report her missing. Detective Thorne nodded, flipping through his notes. Mr. Donovan, we've made some progress in the investigation today. We've questioned all hotel staff and several guests. We've also reviewed the CCTV footage from the resort. Liam sat up straighter. And we can confirm your wife attended the yoga session at 6:45 a.m. Multiple witnesses saw her there. Cameras then captured her walking toward the spa between 7:50 and 8:15 a.m. So, she was heading for her appointment, Liam said. But the spa said she never arrived. That's correct, Officer Reyes interjected. The footage shows something else. Your wife was approached by a man in a staff uniform before she reached the spa. They appeared to have a conversation, and then they walked away together. Liam's heart raced. What? Who was he? One of the hotel staff. Detective Thorne shook his head. That's where things get concerning. We've checked with management. This individual doesn't appear on any staff roster. No one recognizes him. Then he must have kidnapped her. Liam slammed his palm on the table. Have you found where he took her? Did anyone see anything? We've checked all available footage, the third officer explained. The man and your wife exited the hotel and walked onto the street. No signs of struggle or distress. No one, staff, or guests, reported hearing anyone asking for help or seeing anything unusual. So, you're saying my wife just voluntarily walked off with a stranger? Liam couldn't keep the disbelief from his voice. Detective Thorne cleared his throat. We're not drawing conclusions yet, but there's something else you should know. We spoke with the yoga instructor, Mr. Chen. He mentioned that your wife made an unusual comment during the session. What comment? He says. She mentioned she'd be free of everything soon. Mr. Chen didn't think much of it at the time, assumed she was talking about feeling free after yoga. But given the circumstances, Liam shook his head vehemently. No, that's absurd. Evelyn wouldn't just leave. We just got married 2 weeks ago. This is our honeymoon, for God's sake. His voice echoed off the bare walls of the interview room. Mr. Donovan, please, Detective Thorne said calmly. We're not suggesting anything. We're simply gathering all possible information. Liam fought to regain his composure. So, what about this man? Where did they go? Did the cameras follow them? They didn't go to the parking lot, Officer Reyes explained. They walked onto Lakeside Avenue. We've been checking street cameras and asking local businesses for footage. We managed to track them for about 2 blocks before losing them. And you still haven't found her. Liam's voice was strained. Detective Thorne shook his head. Riverswood is relatively quiet this time of year, but we've been asking locals, shop owners, restaurant staff. No one recalls seeing them. We've expanded our search radius today, but haven't had any significant leads yet. So, what now? Liam asked, desperation evident in his voice. We've called in additional resources from the regional police detective. Thorne explained. Tomorrow, we'll widen our search perimeter around Riverswood. We've also alerted Border Control and Sea Patrol for the entire Southern Isle, as well as immigration authorities and Northern Isle crossings. If someone is trying to take her off the island, we'll know. Liam nodded slowly, trying to process everything. 5 days into their honeymoon, and his wife had vanished without a trace. Nothing made sense anymore. Is there anything else you can tell us, Mr. Donovan? Anything unusual about your wife's behavior recently? Any concerns she expressed? Liam shook his head. No, nothing. She was happy. We were happy. He wiped a hand across his face, exhaustion setting in. This is supposed to be the happiest time of our lives. Detective Thorne closed his notebook. We'll continue our investigation first thing tomorrow morning. Try to get some rest, Mr. Donovan. We'll drive you back to the hotel. As they led him out to the police car, Liam cast his gaze across the starlit waters of Lake Serenity, wondering where in this beautiful vast wilderness his wife could be. The thought that she might be in danger, scared and alone, was unbearable. Please, he whispered to the officers as they reached the car. Just please find her. Back in the honeymoon suite at Mountain Vista Lodge, Liam shut the door and slumped. Against it, the day's burdens pressing heavily on him. The room, once a haven, with its sweeping views of the mountains and lake, and a luxurious king-sized bed, now felt more like a mausoleum to happiness that had been cruelly taken. Evelyn's open suitcase lay on the luggage rack, her clothes meticulously folded inside, a painful reminder of her absence. Her nightgown was still draped over the armchair where she'd left it yesterday morning. Her slippers beside the bed precisely where she'd stepped out of them before heading to yoga. Liam moved to the bed and sank down onto it, his body heavy. With exhaustion, he should try to sleep. Tomorrow would bring another round of questioning, another day of searching. But his mind raced, replaying every moment of the past weeks, searching for some clue, some sign he might have missed. He changed into pajama bottoms and a t-shirt, then lay back on the king-sized bed. The empty space beside him was a void, screaming, with silence. They'd only been married for 2 weeks. How could this be happening? Rubbing his eyes, Liam tried to quiet his thoughts. Something felt wrong about all of this. Not just the disappearance itself, which was surreal enough, but something in the details nagged at him. The mysterious staff member who wasn't on the hotel roster, the strange comment about being free. None of it aligned with the Evelyn he knew. Rolling to his side, he spotted Evelyn's phone on the nightstand where the police had returned it to him after their examination. He'd argued that he should keep it in case Evelyn tried to reach out or someone called with information about her. After some negotiation and a thorough forensic check, they'd agreed, but only for the first 72 hours, after which it would need to be reassessed. Liam reached for the device. The screen lit up to reveal a flurry of notifications, missed calls from friends, text messages asking about their honeymoon, social media alerts, but nothing related to her disappearance. He hadn't told anyone yet, not his parents, not her family. It had only been a day, and part of him still clung to the hope that there was a simple explanation, that she would walk through the door any minute with an apologetic smile. As he set the phone back down, his own phone pinged with a new email notification. Picking it up, he saw the sender was Olivia Bennett, their wedding organizer. The edited photos from your special day are ready. Find them in the attached Google Drive folder. It was an absolute honor to be part of such a beautiful celebration of love. Liam hesitated for a moment before tapping the link. Olivia had mentioned the photos would be ready 7 or 10 days after the wedding. Part of him wasn't sure he could bear to look at them now, with Evelyn missing, but another part needed to see her face to remember the joy they'd shared. The folder loaded, revealing about 50 professionally edited photos. Liam began swiping through them, each image a perfect capture of what had been the happiest day of his life. The ceremony at the countryside estate in the green fields, the golden sunlight filtering through ancient oak trees. Evelyn's family and friends who had flown all the way from the US, mingling with his British relatives. "Where are you, honey?" he murmured to himself as he flipped through image after image. There was Evelyn in her gown, a vision that had taken his breath away. There they were exchanging vows, her eyes glistening with tears of joy. Their first kiss as husband and wife, the cutting of the cake, their first dance. He continued swiping until he came to one of his favorites, a shot of them walking back down the aisle after being pronounced husband and wife. The photo captured them perfectly, radiant with happiness, holding hands as their guests stood on either side of the aisle, applauding. Colorful bunting hung overhead against the brilliant blue sky, and the lush greenery of the Greenfields estate provided a perfect backdrop. Liam zoomed in on their faces, smiling at the memory. Then, almost absently, he began panning around the image, taking in the guests' joyful expressions when something caught his eye in the background. He zoomed in further on a figure standing toward the rear of the gathering. The blood drained from his face, while everyone else in the photo was clapping and smiling, focusing on the newlyweds. This man stood rigid, arms at his sides, face serious, almost cold as he stared directly at Evelyn. "Julian Reed," Liam whispered, his voice hollow in the empty room. It was unmistakably Evelyn's ex-husband, the man they had not invited, the man who had no business being at their wedding, the man who had spent months harassing and threatening Evelyn after she left him, until they'd finally reached an arrangement. Evelyn wouldn't reveal what she knew about his corrupt business dealings if he left them alone. And he had, or so they'd thought. Liam sat bolt upright on the bed, his heart pounding. Julian Reed had been at their wedding watching from the shadows. And now, 2 weeks later, Evelyn was missing. It couldn't be a coincidence. Liam jumped off the bed, his exhaustion instantly replaced by adrenaline. He quickly downloaded the wedding photo to his phone, determined to show it to the police first thing in the morning. No, scratch that. He would call Detective Thornwright. Now, His fingers shook as he scrolled through his contacts for the detective's number. Just as he was about to tap call, his phone lit up with an incoming call from an unknown number. Liam stared at it for a second, then answered. "Hello, Liam?" The voice on the other end made his heart stop. It was Evelyn. "Evelyn, where are you? Are you okay?" "I've been out of my mind. I'm fine, Liam." Her voice sounded flat, distant, not at all like the warm, vibrant woman he'd married. "I'm so sorry for doing it this way." "Doing what, Evelyn? What's happening? Are you in danger?" "Just tell me where you are and I'll come get you." There was a pause before she continued. "On our honeymoon, I've had time to think about everything about us, and I don't think this is going to work out." Liam felt as if he'd been punched in the stomach. "What are you talking about? We have different interests, different lives. Getting married was a mistake. I need some time alone to figure things out. That's why I left. But now I realize everyone is searching for me, and I don't want that. I'm not in danger, Liam. I just need space." Liam sank back onto the bed, struggling to process what he was hearing. "Is this about your job? About moving to England with me? Because we can work that out. We can find a solution." "Yes, that's part of it," she interjected. "But there's more. I just don't feel like we're suitable for each other in the long run. We promised to be with each other until death, and I don't think that's possible for us. Evelyn, this isn't you. This isn't making any sense. Is someone forcing you to say this?" Blink twice if he stopped himself, realizing the absurdity of asking someone to blink over a phone call. "Just tell me where you are. I have to go now," she said, her voice suddenly hurried. "I'm sorry, Liam. Please just move on from me." "Evelyn, wait." But the line went dead. Damn it. Liam hurled his phone onto the bed, a guttural sound of frustration tearing from his throat. He paced the room, trying to make sense of what had just happened. That hadn't sounded like Evelyn. Not really. Her words perhaps, but not her voice. Not her spirit. The Evelyn he knew wouldn't just walk away from their marriage after 2 weeks without even a face-to-face conversation. They'd been together for 3 years before the wedding. They'd weathered storms together, including the harassment from Julian Reed, and then a detail hit him that made him stop in his tracks. Evelyn's phone was still here on the nightstand. If she had left voluntarily with all those reasons she'd mentioned, why would she leave her phone behind? Was she truly trying to abandon her old life? That made no sense. Despite the financial challenges her family faced, Evelyn had always spoken warmly of them. She would never just cut them off without a word. And what about the man in the staff uniform who had approached her at the hotel? If Evelyn had planned to leave on her own, why the elaborate charade with a fake staff member? Then there was Julian Reed, uninvited at their wedding, watching Evelyn like a hawk. None of it added up. Liam grabbed his phone again and quickly changed into jeans and a sweater. He needed to get back to the police station, to show them the wedding photo, to tell them about the call. As he left his room and waited for the elevator, his phone rang again. This time it was Detective Thorne. "Mr. Donovan, I need to inform you that your wife has just contacted us." "I know," Liam said quickly. "She called me, too, but Detective, something's not right. That wasn't really her. I mean, it was her voice, but not her words. And I found something else. Julian Reed, her ex-husband, was at our wedding uninvited." "I have a photo, Mr. Donovan," the detective interrupted, his tone professional but gentle. "We traced the call immediately and dispatched an officer to check on your wife. She's staying at a service apartment by herself. The officer spoke with her personally. She confirmed she left of her own volition and is not in any danger." Liam felt as if the floor beneath him had disappeared. "What? No, that can't be right. Where is she? I need to see her." I'm afraid I can't disclose that information. Your wife has specifically requested privacy, and since there's no crime involved, we have to respect her wishes. You can't just close the investigation like that." Liam's voice rose, drawing a curious glance from an elderly couple waiting for the elevator. "Mr. Donovan, there's nothing more we can do if your wife has chosen to leave. This is now a personal matter between you and her." The detective's voice softened slightly. "If I may offer some personal advice, newlywed couples often get caught up in the excitement of the wedding, without fully considering how their lives will change afterward. Perhaps give her some time to process things." Liam couldn't believe what he was hearing. "This is insane. My wife wouldn't just leave like this. Something else is going on." "I understand this is difficult," Detective Thorne said, "but the case is closed. Good night, Mr. Donovan." The line went dead, leaving Liam standing in the hallway, phone clutched in his hand, completely alone. Liam returned to the suite, slamming the door behind him with enough force to rattle the framed artwork on the walls. His mind raced, trying to make sense of the bewildering turn of events. The police had closed the case. Evelyn had supposedly told them, and him, that she'd left voluntarily, that their marriage was a mistake. But every fiber of Liam's being rejected this explanation. It didn't align with the woman he'd fallen in love with, the woman who had stood before their families and friends just 2 weeks ago and promised to share her life with him. He paced the room, running his hands through his hair in frustration. If the police wouldn't help him, he would have to figure this out himself. Liam's thoughts kept returning to Julian Reed. The man's presence at their wedding couldn't be a coincidence. Not when Evelyn disappeared just 2 weeks later. He remembered vividly the first few months after he and Evelyn had become a couple. Julian had been relentless, threatening phone calls, showing up at her workplace, even following her home one night. The man had been obsessed, unable to accept that Evelyn had left him, but they'd found leverage. Through her work at Reed's investment group, Evelyn had discovered evidence of corruption and money laundering. They'd struck a deal. Julian would leave them alone, and they would keep quiet about what they knew. It had worked, or seemed to. Julian had backed off, and they had kept their end of the bargain. For 3 years, they hadn't heard a word from him. They'd built their life together, planned their wedding, looked toward their future. Liam sat down at the desk in the suite and pulled out his tablet. If Julian Reed was behind Evelyn's disappearance, there might be clues to his whereabouts that could lead Liam to his wife. He began searching for any recent news about Julian. What he found confirmed his suspicions. Despite their silence about his illegal activities, someone else had eventually blown the whistle last year. A former business partner who had turned state's evidence in exchange for immunity. Julian had faced significant fallout. He'd lost several properties, a substantial portion of his company, and his reputation had been publicly tarnished. Remarkably, though, he'd managed to avoid jail time, likely through expensive lawyers and carefully hidden evidence. Liam dug deeper. If Julian still had property in Southern Isle, that could be where he was keeping Evelyn. He searched property, records, corporate filings, anything that might reveal a connection. After an hour of intensive searching, Liam found what he was looking for. A listing for a property in Riverswood, purchased through a shell company that he was able to trace back to one of Julian's remaining holdings. The address was in a secluded area about 20 minutes from the Mountain Vista Lodge. His pulse quickened. This had to be it. Liam grabbed his jacket and checked the time just past midnight. As he prepared to leave, he paused, reconsidering his approach. Should he try to contact the police again? Would they listen now that he had an address? Probably not. They'd made it clear they considered the case closed. Besides, Julian Reed was wealthy and influential even after his fall from grace. If he had connections within the local police force, any warning might alert him. No, Liam would have to do this himself. He would go to the address, see if there was any sign of Evelyn, and then decide his next move. If he found evidence that she was being held against her will, he could call for help. He picked up Evelyn's phone one last time, looking at her lock screen, a photo of them together on a hiking trip in the Lakelands back in England. Her smile was radiant, genuine. That was the real Evelyn, not the hollow voice on the phone telling him their marriage was over. "I'm coming to find you," he whispered to the image. "Hold on." With newfound determination, Liam pocketed his own phone, made sure he had his wallet and room key, and headed for the door. As he turned the handle, he caught sight of their wedding rings gleaming on the nightstand. Evelyn's left there while she went to yoga, planning to put it back on after her spa treatments. He picked up her ring and slipped it into his pocket alongside his knife. Then, with a deep breath, he stepped into the hallway, ready to find his wife. Whether the police believed she needed rescuing or not, the night air was crisp and cold as Liam exited the Mountain Vista Lodge. He spotted a taxi idling outside the hotel entrance, the driver scrolling through his phone as he waited for potential customers. Even at this late hour, Liam approached the cab and climbed into the back seat. He pulled out his phone and showed the driver the address he'd found. "Can you take me here, please?" The driver glanced at the address. "Fernhill area." "Sure thing, mate. Bit quiet out there this time of night, though." "That's fine," Liam said, settling back in his seat. He kept his GPS app open, tracking their movement through the darkened streets of Riverswood. The town was subdued at this hour, though. Small groups of late-night revelers still wandered between bars along the waterfront. As they left the town center behind, the streets grew darker and quieter, houses more spaced apart. Liam's anxiety mounted with each passing minute. What would he find at Julian's property? Would Evelyn be there? And if she was, what was he realistically going to do about it? One man against Julian and however many people he might have working for him. After about 20 minutes, the taxi driver slowed down. "We're almost there. Want me to drop you a bit before the actual address?" "It's pretty dark out here." "Yes, please," Liam agreed, grateful for the driver's discretion. A few houses down would be perfect. The driver pulled over at a spot where the road curved. About 100 yards from the address, Liam stepped out into the darkness. The taxi's taillights receded down the road, leaving him alone in the cold night air. He waited a moment for his eyes to adjust to the darkness before proceeding cautiously toward Julian's property. As he drew closer, he could make out a large modern house set back from the road behind a security gate. The house was completely dark, no lights visible in any of the windows, no sign of activity around the perimeter. It looked uninhabited. Liam frowned, disappointed. Had his lead been a dead end? He stood in the shadows of a large pine tree, watching the property for several minutes, but saw no movement, no indication that anyone was inside. Then he remembered what Detective Thorne had said, that Evelyn was staying at a service apartment. He scanned the area around him, noticing, for the first time, a low-rise building about a block away from Julian's property. Even from this distance, he could see the sign illuminated by subtle ground lighting. Lakeview Service Apartments. Could that be where Evelyn was? The detective had said they'd checked on her at a service apartment. Liam made his way toward the building, hope surging through him. As he reached the entrance, his suspicions were confirmed. It was definitely a service department complex, just as the police had described. This had to be it. Evelyn must be inside. But how would he get in? The main door required a keycard, and even if he managed to get inside, he had no idea which. Apartment Evelyn might be in. There was a concierge desk inside, but it appeared unmanned at this hour. He stood there, indecisive, weighing his options. He could wait outside until morning, hoping to catch a glimpse of Evelyn if she left the building. Or he could return to Julian's property, see if there was any way to determine whether anyone was actually there. Deciding on the latter course of action, Liam returned to the dark house. He approached the gate cautiously and pressed the intercom button. After a long moment of silence, he pressed it again. Still nothing. He was about to turn away when the speaker crackled to life. "Who is it?" a woman's voice asked, sounding elderly and irritated at being disturbed. "I'm looking for Julian Reed," Liam said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Is he available? Who's asking?" The woman demanded. "I'm an associate from Sterling. I need to speak with him urgently." There was a pause. Then the woman replied, "The boss hasn't been here for a very long time. Go away. It's the middle of the night. It's very important," Liam persisted. "When do you expect him back?" "I said go away," the woman snapped. "I'm not giving you any information. The boss doesn't live here anymore." There was a slight pause before she added grudgingly, "If you're that desperate to find him, try the fish and lure down the road. He used to conduct business there before all his trouble started." The intercom clicked off, leaving Liam standing alone at the gate. He felt a mixture of frustration and hope, a new lead. If Julian had frequented this local bar, perhaps someone there might have information about his current whereabouts. Liam returned to the road, his mind racing. If Julian wasn't at his Riverswood property, where was he? And if Evelyn was supposedly staying at the service apartments of her own free will, why would she choose one so close to her ex-husband's property? He looked back at the apartment building, considering his next move. It was late, and there was little more he could do tonight without raising suspicions. But he couldn't just go back to the hotel. Not when he was so close. Across the street from the apartments, Liam noticed a small bar with a neon sign still glowing in the window. The Fish and Lure. It appeared to be one of the few establishments still open at this hour. This had to be the place the housekeeper had mentioned. Perfect. He could ask about Julian there, keep an eye on the apartment building, and see if there was any activity at Julian's property. At the very least, he might be able to gather some local intelligence. With a renewed sense of purpose, Liam crossed the street and pushed open the door to the bar. The Fish and Lure was a local watering hole with dark wood paneling, fishing memorabilia on the walls, and the faint smell of beer and cigarette smoke that had seeped into the furnishings over decades. A few patrons were scattered around, a couple of older men at the bar, a group of friends at a corner table, and a solitary woman nursing a glass of wine while reading a book. Liam approached the bar and ordered a beer from the middle-aged bartender, a stocky man with a salt and pepper beard. "You're not from around here," the bartender observed as he placed the beer in front of Liam. "No," Liam replied. "I'm from England, just visiting." He hesitated, then decided to be direct. "Actually, I'm looking for information about Julian Reed. I understand he used to come here." The bartender's expression shifted slightly, becoming more guarded. "Reed, yeah, he used to be a regular before all that business trouble of his. Don't see him much these days." He studied Liam's face. "You a business associate?" "Something like that," Liam said vaguely. "Do you know if he's currently in Riverswood?" The bartender shrugged. "Couldn't say, but if you're really looking to find Julian, or learn about his movements, you should talk to Sam Wallace. He runs the charter business Julian uses whenever he's in town. Julian doesn't own boats himself. Too traceable, I reckon, but he's chartered from Sam for years." Liam's heart quickened. This was exactly the kind of information he needed. "Is this Sam a regular here?" "Oh yeah," the bartender nodded. "He'll probably be in tonight. Man has a tradition. Been doing it for 15 years. He glanced at his watch. "Should be here any time now, actually." Liam positioned himself at a small table by the window where he had a clear view of both the service departments and the road leading to Julian's property. From here, he could also keep an eye on the door, watching for the arrival of Sam Wallace. The buyer arrived, and Liam took a small sip, needing to keep his wits about him. The cool liquid did little to calm his racing thoughts. He felt simultaneously so close to and so far from finding Evelyn. He checked his watch. Nearly 1 a.m. How long should he wait here? What was his actual plan? As he contemplated his next move, the door to the bar swung open, and a boisterous man in his 40s entered, followed by 3 friends. The man was tall, with a weathered face and the confident demeanor of someone who knew he owned the room. "First round's on me, lads," he announced to his friends, slapping one on the back as they made their way to a table not far from where Liam sat. "Order whatever you want. Food, drinks, the works. Tonight we celebrate." Liam tried not to eavesdrop, focusing instead on the view outside the window, but the man's voice carried across the half-empty bar. "I just made a bloody fortune tonight," the man declared, pulling out his phone. "Look at this. A man just rented my yacht half an hour ago. Paid double the going rate without even haggling." His friends leaned in to look at the screen. "You sure?" "It's not a scam, Sam," one asked. "Looks like it came from an offshore account." "Nah, it's legit," Sam insisted. "Already checked my bank account. $200,000 right there in black and white. 200 grand for a week." Another friend whistled. "Must be some big shot." "That's not all," Sam continued, swiping on his phone. "He also paid the security deposit in crypto. Look at the wallet address. Initial Junior." "Junior," one of the friends mused. "Could that be Julian Reed? That rich bloke who lives up a block up the hill?" Liam's ears perked up at the mention of Julian's name. He subtly shifted his position to better hear the conversation. "Could be." Sam nodded thoughtfully. "Had a chat with him in this very bar a few years back. Exchanged numbers, actually. Said he might want to charter the yacht sometime." He shrugged. "Whoever it is, I don't much care as long as the money's good." Liam couldn't believe his luck. This was it, a solid lead. If Julian had just chartered a yacht, that could be how he planned to disappear with Evelyn. Away from the mainland, out of cell reception range, they'd be nearly impossible to track. He stood up, abandoning his barely touched beer, and approached the group's table. "Excuse me," he said, trying to sound casual. "I couldn't help overhearing. You must be Sam Wallace. The bartender told me you might be able to help me. I'm actually looking for Julian Reed. It's quite urgent." The men looked up at him with varying degrees of suspicion and curiosity. "And who might you be?" Sam asked, eyeing him up and down. Liam hesitated, then decided on a version of the truth. "My name's Liam. Julian. He's taken my wife." The group exchanged glances, and one of them snickered. "Mate, sounds like you've got woman troubles. If she's left you for a rich bloke, can't say I blame her." Liam felt his face flush with anger, but he kept his composure. "It's not like that. He's her ex-husband. He's obsessed with her." Sam studied him for a moment. "You do look like a man whose missus has gone missing," he observed. "All right, sit down. Let me hear your story." Liam sat, giving them a condensed version of events. Meeting Evelyn, her history with Julian, their wedding, and her disappearance during their honeymoon. He left out the details about Julian's criminal activities, but emphasized the man's obsessive behavior. "I believe he's planning to take her away on this yacht you've chartered to him," Liam concluded. "I need to know where they're going." Sam looked skeptical. "Look, mate, I feel for you. I really do. But I've got a business to run. Can't go around giving out client information based on some story." "Please," Liam implored. "At least tell me if they've left yet. Where's the yacht docked?" Sam sighed, then seemed to soften. Alright, tell you what, I'm in a good mood tonight with this payday. Let me check with my staff at the dock. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Mike, yeah, it's me. That charter for tonight, have they set sail yet? He listened for a moment, still waiting for them to arrive. Right, thanks. He hung up and looked at Liam. They haven't left yet. Yacht's still at my private anchorage in Clearwater Cove. Staff says they're expecting the party to arrive within the hour. Liam's heart raced. Clearwater Cove? How far is that? About 3 hours drive from here. 2 if you really push it this time. Of night, with no traffic. Liam stood up. I need to get there now. Is there any way you could take me? I'll pay you double, triple what Julian's paying. Sam laughed. You don't look like you got that kind of cash, son. But I tell you what, I'm curious to see how this plays out. And if this Julian character really has took your wife, well, I don't want that on my conscience. He stood up. I'll drive you there myself, but you have to promise me one thing. Anything, Liam said eagerly. Don't piss off the rich guy too much. I don't want him asking for his money back. Sam winked at his friends. Always knew I'd get a good story out of that yacht someday. Life on this southernmost island can get pretty dull. One of his friends raised his glass to Sam's unexpected night of adventure. As the group toasted, Liam felt a surge of hope for the first time since Evelyn had disappeared. He was on Julian's trail, and with luck, he'd reached the yacht before. It sailed, before Julian could take Evelyn beyond his reach forever. Let's go, Sam said, downing the last of his drink. Got my off-road SUV outside. We'll make it in 2 hours flat. True to his word, Sam's driving got them to Clearwater Cove in just under 2 hours. The journey had been a blur of winding mountain roads and tense silence, broken occasionally by Sam's casual commentary on the landscape or questions about Liam's situation. As they approached the private anchorage, nestled in a secluded inlet, surrounded by the towering peaks and dense forests of Clearwater Cove National Park, Liam's anxiety reached a fever pitch. The remote location confirmed his suspicions. Julian had chosen this spot precisely because it was isolated, far from prying eyes. There's my beauty, Sam said as they rounded the final bend, his high-beam headlights illuminating a sleek white yacht moored at a private dock. The Southern Cross, 76 feet, luxury cruiser man's, paying top dollar for her. Liam peered through the windshield, his heart pounding. The yacht's lights were on, casting a golden glow on the dark water. Several figures moved across the deck, and standing at the end of the dock was a group of people. Pull over here, Liam urged. I don't want them to see us coming. Sam obliged, parking the off-road SUV behind a small maintenance building about 100 yards from the dock. From this vantage point, they had a clear view of the yacht and the people gathered at the dock. Got some binoculars in the glove box, Sam offered. Use those. Liam retrieved the binoculars and trained them on the dock. His breath caught in his throat as he spotted her. Evelyn walking down the wooden planks toward the yacht. She was alive. She was here. But something wasn't right. Though she wasn't bound or visibly restrained, her body language was tense, her movements stiff. Behind her walked two men in dark suits, security by the look of them. And there, stepping out of the yacht to greet her, was Julian Reed himself. Liam watched as Julian reached out to touch Evelyn's arm. She flinched, pulling away from him, but he persisted, placing his hand on the small of her back to guide her onto the yacht. That's them, Liam said, his voice tight with anger. That's my wife, and that's Julian, the man in the blue suit stepping out of the yacht. Doesn't look like she's going willingly, Sam observed, squinting at the scene. No, she's not. Liam's resolve hardened. I need to call the police. He pulled out his phone and dialed Detective Thorne's number. To his surprise, The detective answered despite the late hour. Mr. Donovan, it's 3 a.m. What? I found her, Liam interrupted. Evelyn, she's at a private dock in Clearwater Cove. Julian Reed has her, and he's about to take her away on a yacht. There was a pause. Then Detective Thorne's voice came back. Sharper now. Mr. Donovan, where exactly are you? Liam relayed their location, describing the private anchorage and the yacht. How did you find this place? The detective asked. I did some research on Julian, found his property in Riverswood. Then I met the owner of the yacht, Julian chartered. He drove me here. Mr. Donovan, this is an extremely dangerous situation. You need to stay where you are. Do not approach Julian or his men. We'll deploy a search and rescue team immediately. You need to hurry, Liam urged. They're boarding the yacht now. If they leave, Evelyn doesn't look comfortable at all. Understood. Police and maritime units are on their way, but it will take time to reach your location. Stay hidden, Mr. Donovan. Do you understand? Yes, Liam said, though his mind was already racing ahead to what he'd do if the police didn't arrive in time. After ending the call, he turned to Sam. Police are on their way, but I don't know if they'll get here before the yacht leaves. Do you know where they might be heading? Sam scratched his chin thoughtfully. There's just so many islands separated from the mainland by Misty Sound and Storm Sound. Once they're out there, there's no signal, no coverage. Those are remote islands. If they reach one of those, you might not find her for days, maybe weeks. Liam watched through the binoculars as Julian's security team began removing the mowing lines. They were preparing to depart. I can't wait, Liam decided. If that yacht leaves, we might never find Evelyn. Sam grabbed his arm. What are you thinking of doing, mate? Those BS look like professionals. You'll get yourself killed. I have to try, Liam insisted. I can't just sit here and watch them take her. Sam sighed heavily. You've got guts. I'll give you that. He reached into the back seat and pulled out a small case. Opening it, he removed what looked like a handgun here. It's not real, just a replica. Illegal to have real guns here and bloody hard to find. But they won't know that in the dark. Liam took the mock gun, testing its weight in his hand. Thank you. Don't mention my name, Sam warned. I don't want that. Man chasing after me if this goes sideways. And be careful, replica or not. Those security bloss first and ask questions later. Liam nodded. Taking a deep breath, he opened the car door and stepped out into the cold night air. He tucked the mop gun into his waistband, covering it with his jacket, and began making his way toward the dock. Staying in the shadows, he approached slowly, careful to remain out of sight. The yacht's engines had started, a low hum carrying. Across the water, he was running out of time. When he reached the end of the dock, Liam pulled out the gun and stepped out of the shadows. The security team was too focused on their departure preparations to notice him until he was halfway down. The dock. Stop, he called out, pointing the gun at Julian. Step away from my wife. All heads turned toward him, the security team reaching for their weapons. Julian's eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed with contempt. Evelyn's reaction was the most telling, her face transformed with relief and hope. Liam, she cried out, taking a step toward him before one of Julian's men grabbed her arm. Let her go, Liam commanded, keeping the mock gun trained on Julian. It's over, Julian. The police are on their way. Julian recovered from his surprise, a smirk forming on his face. Liam Donovan, always the hero, aren't you? But you're too late. We're leaving and Evelyn is coming with me. No, I'm not, Evelyn said firmly, struggling against the man holding her. Let me go. I told you, Julian. I will never be with you again. Julian ignored her, his eyes locked on Liam. You should have stayed in your hotel room, mourning your failed marriage. Now you've complicated things unnecessarily. We kept our end of the bargain, Liam said, taking another step forward. We stayed quiet about your dirty business. Why did you do this to us? Julian's face hardened. You think I don't know? It wasn't you who reported me. One of my oldest partners stabbed me in the back. I lost properties, a significant portion of my wealth. He glanced at Evelyn. But I'm still wealthy enough. And after I lost everything that mattered, I realized what I missed most was her. He reached out to touch Evelyn's face, but she jerked away. When I heard about your wedding, I had to see it for myself. I have contacts everywhere. And when I saw you two there, so happy, his voice turned cold. I couldn't let that stand. She belongs with me. She belongs wherever she chooses to be, Liam replied. And she's chosen to leave you. Let her go, Julian. It's over. The distant sound of helicopter rotors suddenly filled the air. Julian and his men looked up, momentarily distracted. In that instant, everything changed. Julian's security team, panicking at the sound of approaching authorities, made a split-second decision. Two of them broke away, diving into the dark water to escape, while the others hesitated, looking to Julian for direction. Seizing the moment, Evelyn wrenched free from her captor's grip and ran to Liam, who kept the gun pointed at Julian with one hand while putting his other arm protectively around her. It's really over now, Liam said, as the helicopter searchlights swept across the water, illuminating the dock in harsh white light. The helicopter's powerful searchlight bathed the dock in an almost daylight bright glow, the thunderous beating of its rotors drowning out all other sounds. In the harsh light, Liam could see the panic spreading across Julian's face as his carefully constructed plan crumbled around him. Two police boats approached rapidly from the south end of the inlet, their blue lights flashing across the dark water. On the shore, several police vehicles pulled up, their headlights cutting through the night. Julian's remaining security personnel looked to him for guidance, but the fight had gone out of him. As the police boats pulled alongside the dock, officers with weapons drawn shouted commands. Down on the ground. Everyone down on the ground now. Julian's men complied immediately, dropping to their knees and then lying prone on the wooden planks of the dock. Only Julian himself remained standing, a look of cold fury on his face as he stared at Liam and Evelyn. This isn't over, he said quietly, just before two officers approached him from behind. Julian Reed, you're under arrest, one of them announced, holstering his weapon and pulling out handcuffs. You have the right to remain silent. As Julian was being handcuffed and led away, Liam finally lowered the mock gun. His arm trembling from the sustained tension, Evelyn turned fully into his embrace, burying her face against his chest as silent sobs shook her body. It's okay, he murmured into her hair. It's over. You're safe now. A female officer approached them. Mr. and Mrs. Donovan, I'm Sergeant Diaz. We need to get you both to safety and take your statements. Liam nodded, guiding Evelyn toward the waiting police vehicle. As they walked, he discreetly handed the mock gun to Sergeant Diaz, whispering, It's not real. The officer took it with a raised eyebrow, but said nothing, merely nodding her understanding. Once inside the warmth of the police car, Evelyn finally looked up at Liam, her eyes red, rimmed but clear. How did you find me? How did you know? I saw him in our wedding photos, Liam explained. He was there watching us. Then I remembered all the threats, his obsession with you. When you disappeared, I knew it had to be him. Evelyn squeezed his hand. He had someone watching us from the moment we arrived in Southern Isle, when that man approached me at the resort. I thought he was staff, but he showed me a photo of my parents. Said they would be harmed if I didn't go with him quietly. Liam's blood ran cold. Did he hurt you? She shook her head. No, he wanted me to choose him willingly. Kept saying we were meant to be together, that you and I would never work out. Her voice hardened. "He made me call you. Stood right there with his men, telling me what to say. I tried to sound as unconvincing as possible, hoping you'd realize something was wrong." "I did," Liam assured her. "Nothing about that call sounded like you, and you left your phone behind. I knew you'd never do that voluntarily." The drive to the nearest police station was a blur of dark forests and winding roads. By the time they arrived, the adrenaline of the rescue had worn off, leaving both Liam and Evelyn exhausted but grateful to be together and safe. At the station, they were separated for individual interviews. Liam was taken to a small room where he met with a different detective than the one he dealt with in Riverswood. "I'm Detective Sergeant Collins," the officer introduced himself. "I understand you've had quite a night, Mr. Donovan." Liam nodded wearily. "You could say that." He gave his statement recounting everything from Evelyn's disappearance to his discovery of Julian in their wedding photos, his research into Julian's properties, and finally the confrontation at the dock. The detective recorded everything, occasionally asking for clarification, but otherwise letting Liam tell his story uninterrupted. "We'll need to coordinate with the Riverswood police," Detective Collins explained. When Liam had finished, "Detective Thorne has already been briefed on the situation. Will Julian be able to get away with this?" Liam asked. "He's wealthy, has connections." "Not this time," Collins assured him. "Kidnapping is a serious offense, and with the evidence we have, including Mrs. Donovan's testimony and the fake staff member who initially approached her, we have a strong case. Additionally, Mr. Julian is a U.S. citizen with extensive business interests and possible money laundering operations in Southern Isle. There will be multiple agencies involved in his prosecution." The door opened, and another officer entered, carrying a small evidence bag. "Sir, we found this during the security check of Mrs. Donovan," the officer reported, handing the bag to Detective Collins. Inside lay a delicate beaded bracelet. Liam recognized it instantly. Evelyn had worn it for months, cherishing it as a gift she believed came from her mother. "Our team found a tracking device embedded in one of the beads," the officer explained. "Very sophisticated, virtually undetectable, without specialized equipment." Liam stared at the bracelet in shock. "She's been wearing that since about 4 months before our wedding." Detective Collins nodded grimly. "It appears Mr. Julian has been monitoring your wife's movements for some time, planning this operation carefully." A cold realization washed over Liam. Julian had been watching them, tracking Evelyn's every move for months, waiting for the perfect opportunity. The honeymoon to Riverswood, which Evelyn had said was a generous gift from her old boss, a woman she'd been close to, suddenly seemed far less innocent. Could Julian have orchestrated that, too? In a foreign country where he owned property, had deep-rooted connections, and where they were cut off from their usual support network, it all seemed too perfectly arranged. After completing his statement, Liam was led to a waiting area where Evelyn was already seated, wrapped in a blanket provided by the station staff. The moment she saw him, she stood and rushed into his arms. Over her shoulder, Liam watched as Julian was led through the station toward the detention cells. Despite his handcuffs and the officers flanking him, Julian maintained his arrogant demeanor, a smug grin spreading across his face when he spotted Liam and Evelyn. "This isn't done," he called out. "You can't run from me." Liam met his gaze steadily. "Yes, we can, especially when you have no money left to chase us with." Julian's grin faltered slightly before the officers ushered him away. Turning his attention back to Evelyn, Liam guided her to the seats. "Are you okay? Really okay?" She nodded, exhaustion evident in her eyes. "I am now," she hesitated, then asked, "Did they tell you about the bracelet?" "Yes," Liam replied softly. "He's been tracking you for months." Evelyn shuddered. "I never suspected it was from my mother, or so I thought." It arrived in the mail with a card signed from her. She looked down at her bare wrist. I feel violated knowing he's been watching me, following me all this time. Liam held her close. It's over now. He'll be locked away for a long time. I'd like to hope so, Evelyn murmured, her voice muffled as she buried her face in his neck. A female officer approached them with 2 cups of coffee. You two have had quite an ordeal. The detectives say you're free to go once transport back to Riverswood can be arranged. Should be in about an hour. As the officer walked away, Evelyn turned to Liam with a tentative smile. Are we still on our honeymoon? We still have 3 days left, and we haven't even gone flight boarding or cliff jumping yet. Liam laughed, feeling the tension of the past days finally begin to dissolve. I think I might pass on those. Losing you gave me enough of a heart attack, and I imagine the police proceedings will keep us busy for most of those 3 days. Anyway, Evelyn laid her head on his shoulder, her hand finding his pen. Surely we can find some time in between to do something fun. We're at the other end of the world, probably closest to the South Pole we'll ever be. We shouldn't waste it. Before we make any plans, Liam said, suddenly serious, I need to be sure. All those things you said on the phone about regretting our marriage, about us having different interests, he swallowed hard. None of that was real, right? Evelyn lifted her head to look him directly in the eyes. Not a single word, she promised. I've never been more certain of anything than I am of us. Julian made me say those things, trying to make you give up searching. Her expression softened, but I knew you wouldn't believe it. I knew you'd find me. Liam pulled her close again, overwhelmed with relief and gratitude. In the span of a few days, they had weathered a storm that would have broken many couples. They had faced down a dangerous adversary and emerged stronger, as dawn began to break over the mountains of Clearwater Cove, casting its golden light. Through the station windows, Liam and Evelyn sat together, planning not just the remainder of their honeymoon, but the life they would build together, a life free from the shadow of Julian Reed. In the quiet of the early morning, with Evelyn's hand warm in his, Liam suddenly remembered something. He reached into his pocket and pulled out her wedding ring, the one she'd left on the nightstand before heading to yoga that fateful morning. I think this belongs to you, he said softly, holding the gold band between his fingers. Evelyn's eyes widened, filled with emotion as she looked at the ring. You brought it with you. I couldn't leave it behind, Liam said, just like I couldn't leave you behind. He took her left hand gently in his and slid the ring back onto her finger where it belonged. The simple gold band caught the morning light, gleaming as if brand new. Evelyn stared at it for a moment, then intertwined her fingers with his. Perfect fit, she whispered. Just like us. I love you, he whispered into her hair. I love you too, she replied, squeezing his hand. Always. Outside, the sun continued its ascent, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. A new day, a fresh start, and the promise of countless more days together. Stretching out before them like the vast, beautiful landscape of Southern Isle itself. Story to her daughter sent a selfie while on a camping trip with the grandparents. But when her mother zoomed in on the picture, she froze and started to panic. Clara Beaumont sat in her study, the afternoon sunlight filtering through the half-drawn blinds. She tried to focus on the spreadsheet open on her laptop, a critical project for a potential promotion, but her mind kept wandering. With a sigh, she rubbed her tired eyes and shifted positions in her chair for the 10th time in the past hour. This isn't working, she muttered to herself, shoving away from the desk. The house was too quiet. Normally, her 5-year-old daughter, Ella, would be bouncing around, chattering away about her day at kindergarten or demanding to be pushed on the backyard swing. But Ella was away camping with her grandparents, and the silence was deafening. Clara padded down the hallway to the master bedroom and into the adjoining bathroom. She opened the cabinet above the sink, her fingers trembling slightly as they reached for the orange prescription bottle tucked behind the mouthwash. Just as her fingertips brushed against the plastic, a voice from the doorway startled her. "Clara, don't." Michael, her husband, stood in the bathroom doorway, his expression a mixture of disappointment and concern. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, as if he'd been running his hands through it, a habit when he was worried. "I know what you're thinking," he said softly, stepping into the small bathroom. "But you promised for months clean, remember?" Clara's hand hovered near the bottle, trembling slightly. "I can't focus, Michael. This report is due tomorrow, and I haven't written a single coherent paragraph." Her voice cracked. "Just one pill to help me concentrate." Michael gently took her hand and lowered it from the cabinet. "If you take one now, you'll take another tomorrow. Then we're back to square one. And those therapy sessions we've been going to every week will have been for nothing." Clara's shoulders slumped as she closed the cabinet door, catching another glimpse of her tired face in the mirror. "I know you're right. She trailed off, uncertain how to explain the anxious energy coursing through her. "You're worried." "About Ella," Michael said, leading her back to their bedroom and sitting beside her on the edge of the bed. "That's what this is really about, isn't it?" Clara nodded, feeling slightly embarrassed at being so transparent. "This is the longest she's been away from us. 2 nights was already pushing it, but 3, and we've only heard from them once since they left yesterday morning. Mom and Dad have taken her camping plenty of times before," Michael reminded her, his voice gentle but firm. "They're experienced. They've toured half the country in that camper van." "Yes, but never for 3 nights with a toddler," Clara insisted. "And your parents aren't exactly young anymore, Michael. Ella is 5 and full of energy. What if she wanders off while they're napping? What if we trust that my parents, who raised me and my 2 siblings without major incident, can handle 1 kindergartner for 3 days?" Michael interrupted with a slight smile. He massaged her tense shoulders, his strong fingers working at the knots that had formed there. "Remember why they offered to take her in the first place?" Clara sighed. "So I could finish this project and possibly land the promotion." "Exactly. My parents adore Ella, and they wanted to give you this time to focus. They're probably having the time of their lives, showing her all the camping tricks they've picked up over the years." As Michael continued to massage her shoulders, Clara felt some of the tension ebbing away. He was right, of course. Jane and Paul, Michael's parents, were experienced campers who doted on their only granddaughter. "You know," Michael said with a playful tone, leaning in closer to her ear, "if you finish your work early, we might actually get some alone time. When's the last time we had the house to ourselves for more than a few hours?" Despite her anxiety, Clara found herself smiling. "You make a compelling argument." Clara nodded, taking a deep breath. "You're right. I'm sorry for trying to take the medication. 4 months is the longest I've gone without it, and I don't want to break that streak." She stood up, squaring her shoulders with renewed determination. The pills would stay in the cabinet where they belonged. She had promises to keep, to Michael, to her therapist, and most importantly, to herself. With Michael by her side, she walked out of the bathroom, leaving the pills behind. Back in the bedroom, Clara's phone chimed with a notification. She hurried to the bedside table, where it was charging, and saw a new message from Jane, Michael's. "Mother, it's from your mum," she told Michael, eagerly opening the chat. A blurry selfie appeared on the screen alongside a string of nonsensical letters. Clara couldn't help but chuckle. Ella had clearly gotten hold of Jane's phone. "Look at this," she said, showing Michael the phone. "Ella's learning how to take selfies now." Michael peered over her shoulder and laughed. "Kids these days and technology. She's only 5 and already more tech-savvy than my parents." The picture was partially blurred, but Clara could make out a campsite in the background. More importantly, Ella's grinning face was visible. her blonde curls wild around her cherubic face. She looked happy and safe, which eased some of Clara's anxiety. She was about to call back when another picture arrived. This one was clearer. Ella with her tongue out in classic 5-year-old fashion. In the background, Clara could see the camper van and Jane and Paul sitting around a fireplace. But there was someone else there too. A man Clara didn't recognize. No, that wasn't quite right. There was something eerily familiar about him. Clara frowned and zoomed in on the man's face. Her heart began to pound as recognition dawned. "Michael," she called, her voice tight. "Come, look at this." Michael, who had returned to the living room couch to read the news on his tablet, called back, "What is it? Just come here, please." When Michael returned, Clara thrust the phone into his hands. "Do you see what I see?" Michael squinted at the screen, pinching and zooming to get a better look at the man. "Looks like some random camper to me. Probably another family they met at the site." "No," Clara insisted, taking the phone back and zooming in again. "Look more carefully. That's Brandon. Brandon, your ex-husband." Michael's tone was skeptical. "I don't think so, Clara. Brandon was always clean-cut, and his hair was darker. This guy has light brown hair." But Clara was certain, despite the changes in his appearance, the hair, the fuller beard, she recognized the shape of his eyes, the set of his jaw. This was definitely Brandon. She checked the calendar on her phone. "It's been 5 years," she murmured, more to herself than to Michael. 5 years since he went to prison for domestic violence and drugs. Michael's expression softened. He knew Clara's history with Brandon. The abuse she'd suffered when she was pregnant with Ella, the night Brandon had nearly choked her to death before the officers arrived. "If that really is Brandon," Clara continued, her voice trembling, "then he must have been released. But why didn't anyone inform me? I should have been notified." Panic rising in her chest, Clara tried calling Jane, but there was no answer. She tried Paul next with the same result. "Let's go," she said to Michael, already grabbing her purse. Michael hesitated. "Clara, are you sure? Let's go," she repeated, her voice rising with urgency. "If Brandon is there with Ella, we need to get to them right now." Michael nodded, finally sensing the gravity of the situation. He rushed downstairs to start the car, while Clara grabbed a few more necessities. Before following him, however, Clara ducked back into the bathroom. She opened the cabinet again and stared at the medication. After a minute of internal struggle, she grabbed the entire bottle and shoved it into her purse. "Clara, let's go," Michael called from downstairs. She hurried downstairs to the driveway where Michael was waiting in the car, engine running. As she slid into the passenger seat, she felt the weight of the pill bottle in her purse like a guilty secret. "Pine Hollows is about an hour away," Michael said as they pulled out of the driveway. "Try calling your in-laws again while I drive." Clara nodded, clutching her phone tightly. She was trying not to imagine the worst, but if Brandon was really at the campsite with her daughter, nothing good could come of it. The Pine Hollows campground was nestled in the greenstone mountains of Washington state. A peaceful, rustic retreat surrounded by towering pines and meandering hiking trails. Clara and Michael had visited the area many times with Ella, and Jane and Paul had mentioned they would spend 2 nights there before moving to another park for their 3rd night. "I still don't understand how Brandon could be there," Michael said as they sped down the highway. "Do my parents know him? Have they ever met him?" Clara asked. Michael shook his head, keeping his eyes on the road. "I don't think so. They're away in their camper so often, they're not really up to date with what's happening around town. Maybe it's just someone who looks like him," Clara suggested, trying to calm herself. But deep down she knew better. That was Brandon in the photo. As they continued driving in anxious silence, Clara's thoughts drifted back to the night Brandon was arrested. She had been 8 months pregnant, her belly enormous and tender. The memory of his hands around her throat, squeezing as his face contorted with rage, was something she'd tried for years to forget. If the neighbors hadn't called the police. "Look," Michael said suddenly, pulling Clara from her dark memories. "Police cars. Oh God," she whispered, clutching the dashboard as Michael accelerated even more, his knuckles whitening on the steering wheel. They parked hastily and rushed toward the cluster of police officers and rangers gathered near the center of the campground. The campground parking area now buzzing with activity. Another police car had joined the others, and Clara could see uniformed officers talking to various campers. Her eyes frantically scanned the area for Jane and Paul's camper van. It wasn't hard to spot Jane and Paul. They were seated at a picnic table, speaking to a criminal investigator who was taking notes. Paul had an ice pack pressed against his temple, and Jane looked pale and shaken. There, Michael pointed to the familiar blue and white vehicle parked near a cluster of pine trees. "And there's my dad." As they approached, Clara overheard Paul describing what had happened. He introduced himself as Grant, Paul was saying, his voice trembling slightly. "Seemed like a decent fellow, very kind to us, and especially to Ella. Last night we even had a barbecue together. He came with a woman named Anne." Jane added, "his sister, I think. Elegant woman, but friendly too. They were both so good with children. Since yesterday, they've been keeping Ella company, playing with her, drawing and coloring. During the BBQ last night," Paul continued, "he told Ella all sorts of children's stories, and he was a great cook. Made the meat so tender that Ella, who usually isn't fond of meat, finished her entire dinner. We thought they were good people." The criminal investigator nodded, still taking notes. "And what happened this morning?" Paul lowered the ice pack, revealing a nasty bruise. "After breakfast, they said they were leaving soon. Ella was upset and asked to play with them one more time. They promised not to go far. Said they were just going to pick leaves and flowers like they had yesterday." Jane took over, her voice quavering. "I was cleaning inside the camper, arranging Ella's things. Paul was outside reading." Paul continued, "Yeah, I was reading outside. I didn't realize I was so engrossed in my book. I didn't see them getting her into their vehicle. By the time I heard the engine start and looked up, they were already pulling away. I ran after them," he said, touching his bruised face gingerly. "Got to the driver's side before they could leave the campground. Grant, if that's even his real name, got out and hit me. Multiple times. I couldn't stop him." Jane reached over to take her husband's hand. "I called the police immediately, but they've been gone for more than an hour now." The investigator spoke up. "Child abductors typically try to put as much distance as possible between themselves and the abduction site. We've put out an alert for the camper van, but without a license plate number, it's challenging." "Do you have any photos of this Grant person?" Michael asked. Jane shook her head sadly. "We don't really take many pictures when we're camping. It's not our habit." Clara's hand flew to her mouth. "The selfie," she gasped. "Ella sent us a selfie from your phone, Jane. The man was in the background." She fumbled with her phone, pulling up the clearer of the 2 photos Ella had sent, and handed it to the investigator. I think it might be my ex-husband, Brandon Miller." The investigator studied the photo carefully. "Why would you think your ex-husband would take your daughter?" Clara took a deep breath, aware of all eyes on her. "Brandon went to prison 5 years ago for domestic violence and drug possession. I was 35 weeks pregnant with Ella when she swallowed hard. When he assaulted me, I nearly died. If the officers hadn't arrived when they did," she pulled up an old photo of Brandon from social media and showed it to the investigator. "The man in Ella's selfie looks different. He has hair now, and he's heavier. but I'm almost certain it's him. The investigator compared the two photos thoughtfully. There are similarities, though it's hard to be 100% certain with the quality of the image and the changes you mentioned. If this is indeed your ex-husband, Mrs. Beaumont, it would make sense that he's targeting his biological child. Another officer approached their group, speaking quietly to the investigator before addressing them all. We've spoken with other campers and the campground manager. Several people reported seeing a camper van matching the description heading toward town, not up the mountain as we initially thought. Clara's phone suddenly vibrated, displaying an unknown number. She dismissed it, assuming it was a marketing call from a bank or insurance company. But when it immediately rang again, she reconsidered. "Excuse me," she said to the investigator. "I need to take this call." Clara stepped away from the group, finding a quiet corner near a cluster of pine trees. Her hand trembled as she answered the call. "Hello." "Keep your voice down and listen carefully," the voice on the other end said, sending a chill down Clara's spine. It was unmistakably Brandon. In the background, she could hear Ella chattering excitedly about something. "Brandon," she whispered, her free hand curling into a fist. "What have you done?" "Where's Ella?" "She's fine," he replied, his tone eerily calm. "She's having the time of her life, actually. Aren't you, sweetheart?" His voice became slightly distant as he presumably turned to speak to Ella. Clara heard her daughter's cheerful reply, the innocent sound nearly breaking her. "Brandon, please," she pleaded quietly. "Don't do this. She doesn't even know you." "That's exactly the problem, isn't it?" His voice hardened. "My own daughter doesn't know me. 5 years of her life gone. Time I'll never get back. You have no right. I have every right. I'm her biological father," he snapped, cutting her off. "Now listen closely. I don't want to hurt Ella. I didn't take her to harm her. I just want to talk. You and me, we have unfinished business." Clara glanced back at the group huddled around the investigator. Michael was watching her, concern etched across his face. "Why should I believe you?" she snapped. "You took my daughter. You knew she'd be here with my in-laws. You planned this, didn't you? Because if you don't come alone, if you tell the police or that husband of yours about this call, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of mother you really are." His voice lowered dangerously. "I'll tell them everything, Clara. Every dirty little secret." Her blood ran cold. "What are you talking about? You can't threaten me. The police won't believe anything you say." Brandon let out a humorless laugh. "Won't they? Have you forgotten what you did? Cheating on me with Michael while you were pregnant? The amount of alcohol and drugs you consumed, even though you knew you were carrying our child? Or how about the money you stole from your company to feed your addiction?" Clara's legs nearly gave out. She leaned against a nearby tree for support, making sure she was still out of earshot from the others. "That's all in the past," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Michael and I got help. We've been clean for 4 months, and for 4 whole months," Brandon mocked. "Congratulations. But those company funds you embezzled, that little accounting trick that got 3 innocent employees fired, that doesn't just go away, Clara." She closed her eyes, shame and fear battling within her. "What do you want, Brandon? I told you I want to talk. Meet me at the Grand Cafe in Fairview. You know it. My sister owns it. Come alone. Bring Ella's documents, birth certificate, medical records, everything." "Why would I bring her documents?" Clara asked, suspicion rising. "You'll understand when you get here. And Clara, don't make me wait. Don't call this number back. And don't try anything clever. Remember what's at stake." The line went dead. Clara tried immediately to call back, but as Brandon had warned, the number was already disconnected. She stared at her phone, mind racing through impossible options. If she told the police about the call, Brandon might follow through on his threat. The embezzlement had happened over 5 years ago, but the statute of limitations hadn't expired. She could face criminal charges, lose her job, lose custody of Ella, everything she'd worked so hard to build. But if she went alone, was she walking into a trap? What did Brandon really want after all this time? Taking a deep breath to compose herself, Clara returned to the group. Michael immediately moved to her side. "Who was that?" he asked. "You were on the phone for a while." Clara's mind raced for a plausible lie. "It was from the office," she said, avoiding his gaze. "They're demanding that report. I was supposed to email them. They're not happy with the delay." Michael looked skeptical, but didn't press the issue. Around them, the police had cordoned off an area with yellow tape, and more officers had arrived. The investigator approached them with a serious expression. "We've set up roadblocks and issued an AMER alert for Ela. It would be best for all of you to go home and rest. We'll update you as soon as we have any information." Clara nodded absently, her mind already formulating a plan to get away and meet Brandon. "I'm going to take my parents to the hospital," Michael said, putting his arm around Clara's shoulders. "Paul needs to get that head wound properly examined, and they're both pretty shaken up." Paul and Jane were already being led to an ambulance, the older man still clutching the ice pack to his head. "I need to take their camper back," Michael continued. "What about you?" Clara saw her opportunity. "I think I'll go home," she said. "I need to finish that work project." Michael looked at her incredulously. "Now, in the middle of all this, did you tell your office what happened?" "It's just a small business thing I need to deal with," Clara insisted. "I'll catch up with you at the hospital in a few hours. That promotion is still important, Michael." Michael frowned, but eventually nodded. "All right, if that's what you need to do." They said their goodbyes to the police, with promises to stay in touch if there were any developments. Clara watched as the ambulance departed with Jane and Paul, Michael following behind in their camper van. Once alone in her car, the facade Clara had been maintaining crumbled. She gripped the steering wheel tightly, her body trembling as panic and anxiety overtook her. Tears streamed down her face as she pounded the steering wheel in frustration. "Why is this happening?" she sobbed to the empty car. "Why now?" Her gaze fell on her purse, sitting on the passenger seat. The bottle of pills she'd taken from home seemed to call to her, promising instant relief from the overwhelming stress. With shaking hands, Clara reached for the purse and withdrew the bottle. She twisted off the cap and shook a tablet into her palm, staring at it with a mixture of longing and self-loathing. She remembered her promise to Michael, the 4 months of sobriety they'd fought so hard to maintain. But this was different, wasn't it? This was an emergency. She needed to be clear-headed to save Ella, and her anxiety was making that impossible. Rationalizing her decision, Clara broke the tablet in half. A smaller dose wouldn't be as dangerous, she told herself. It would just take the edge off, help her focus, without compromising her driving ability. She swallowed the half-pill dry, waiting for the familiar, calming effect to wash over her. After a few minutes, she felt her racing heart slow and her mind clear. The panic receded, replaced by a determined focus. With steady hands now, Clara started the car and pulled out of the campground parking lot, heading for home. The drive from Pine Hollows back to their home would have normally taken just under an hour, but Clara made it in 40 minutes. Her mind too preoccupied to notice her speedometer creeping well above the limit on the winding mountain roads. The house felt unnervingly quiet as she entered. Clara went straight to the master bedroom, where a small fireproof lockbox held all their important documents. Her fingers fumbled with the combination lock, requiring 3 attempts before it finally opened. Inside were their passports, social security cards, insurance policies, and Ella's documents. birth certificate, social security card, immunization records, and medical history. She rifled through the papers, organizing Ella's documents into a manila folder. As she worked, questions tumbled through her mind. Why did Brandon want these papers? Was he planning to take Ella away permanently, out of state, or even out of the country? "I won't let that happen," she whispered fiercely to the empty room. Clara glanced at the clock. She needed to get moving. Fairview was about 30 minutes away, in the opposite direction from her home. She gathered Ella's documents, took a deep breath, and headed back to her car. The Grand Café was situated in the heart of Fairview, its cheerful yellow awning visible from a block away. Adjacent to the café was a colorful playground designed to keep children entertained while parents enjoyed their coffee and pastries. Clara parked across the street, scanning for the familiar camper van that belonged to Brandon and Anne, but it wasn't there. Only a sleek black luxury car sat by the curb. Then she spotted Ella in the sandbox, her heart leaping at the sight of her daughter, safe, smiling, carefree. But the relief shattered just as quickly. A woman, presumably Anne, had seen her. Without hesitation, she ushered Ella toward the indoor playground, her movement swift, purposeful, like she'd been waiting for Clara to arrive. "At least she's okay," Clara murmured to herself, deciding to leave Ella's documents in the car for now. She wouldn't hand them over until she absolutely had to. As Clara crossed the street, a woman with sleek dark hair and designer sunglasses approached her. She had Brandon's same jawline and carried herself with the confident air of someone accustomed to luxury. "Anne," Clara acknowledged coldly. "He's waiting inside," Anne replied, gesturing toward a private room often used for children's birthday parties. This way, the cafe wasn't crowded today, with only a few patrons scattered at the outdoor tables. Inside the private room, Brandon sat at a table, looking more polished than the man Clara remembered. Prison had changed him physically. He was leaner, his once bald head now covered with light brown hair, his formerly clean-shaven face sporting a well-groomed beard. "Clara," he greeted her, his voice carrying the same smooth charm that had once captivated her. "It's been a long time." Clara felt the effects of the medication wearing off, anxiety creeping back as she faced her ex-husband. "Ella," she demanded, foregoing pleasantries. "She'll start looking for me soon." "She's perfectly fine, as you saw for yourself," Brandon assured her. "Anne will keep her entertained while we talk." "What do you want, Brandon?" Clara asked, taking a seat across from him, but keeping her distance. Brandon leaned forward, his eyes never leaving hers. "I want to discuss an arrangement with you. It's quite simple, really. I want you to tell Ella the truth, that I'm her father. I want her to live with me." "That's absurd," Clara exclaimed. "You can't just show up after 5 years and expect you would still get to see her," Brandon interrupted smoothly. "Once a week, supervised visits. You get to continue your life with Michael, the man you cheated with while you were still with me. And I get to raise my daughter. It's fair, considering the circumstances." "And if I refuse?" Clara challenged, though she already knew the answer. "Then I report everything you did to the police," Brandon said simply. "The drug use during pregnancy, the embezzlement from your company. You'd lose Ela anyway, but you'd also end up in jail." Clara's rage bubbled to the surface. "You did all those things, too, Brandon. You took drugs and drank alcohol alongside me. You never tried to stop me, even though you knew I was pregnant. We were both terrible, both not ready for a baby. The difference," Brandon replied calmly, "is that I didn't steal thousands from my company, and I didn't cheat on you." "Please," Clara begged, her anger giving way to desperation. "I don't take illegal drugs anymore. I've been through therapy. I have prescribed medication now, and I haven't even taken that for 4 months." Brandon raised an eyebrow. "Just 4 months?" After 5 years. So, you were still taking drugs while caring for our baby? The medication was prescribed, Clara insisted. My therapist said it was safe. I only took it after Ella was asleep, and I always dumped my milk afterward when I was breastfeeding. In prison, I got therapy, too, Brandon said, a hint of pride in his voice. I've been completely clean for over 3 years now. If anyone deserved her, it's me. He leaned back in his chair, considering her. But that's beside the point. Here's what's going to happen tonight. Ella stays with me. You tell her I'm her father. Her real father. Tomorrow, you don't come to pick her up. You can visit her on Saturday. And if I don't agree, Clara asked, though she already knew she had no real choice, then I call the police and tell them everything about your past, Brandon said simply. Your choice, Clara. Feeling cornered, Clara reluctantly nodded. Fine, I'll tell her. They walked together to the playground where Ella was building a sandcastle with Anne. When the little girl spotted Clara, her face lit up. Mummy, she squealed, running to Clara and throwing her arms around her legs. Clara knelt down, hugging her daughter tightly, savoring the feel of her small, warm body. Hi, sweetie. Are you having fun? Ella nodded enthusiastically. Mr. Grant and Miss Anne took me camping. We saw deer and picked flowers and had marshmallows. The innocence in her daughter's voice made what Clara had to do next even more painful. She took a deep breath and said, Ella, sweetie, I need to tell you something important. This man isn't really Mr. Grant. His name is Brandon, and he's your father. Ella's brow furrowed in confusion. But Daddy Michael is my daddy. Yes, Michael is your daddy, too, Clara explained, struggling to find the right words. But Brandon is your real daddy from when you were a tiny baby in my tummy. Ella processed this information with the simple logic of a 5-year-old. So, I have 2 daddies. Yes, Clara confirmed, relief washing over her that Ella wasn't upset. The little girl seemed to accept this new reality with remarkable ease. She looked up at Brandon with curious eyes. Can I go to your house? Do you have toys? Brandon smiled, kneeling down to Ella's level. I do have toys and a swimming pool. Would you like to see it? Ella's eyes widened with excitement, but then her expression changed. But I want Mummy to come, too. I miss Mummy. Clara's heart broke at her daughter's words. I can't come tonight, sweetie. I have work to do, but you're going to stay at Daddy Brandon's house tonight, and I'll come get you tomorrow. Ella's face fell, and she began to protest. No, I want you to come with me. Seeing her daughter's distress, Clara quickly amended her plan. Okay, how about this? I'll go with you to Brandon's house, and then I'll leave. Would that be okay? Ella considered this compromise, then nodded reluctantly. Okay, wonderful, Brandon said, standing up. He turned to Clara, his voice low enough that Ella couldn't hear. Don't forget her documents. You better cooperate or I will involve my lawyer. Clara nodded mutely, her heart heavy as she watched Ella take Brandon's hand willingly. She had just agreed to hand her daughter over to her abuser, and there seemed to be nothing she could do about it. Ella clambered into Brandon's car with Anne, chattering excitedly about the swimming pool and what toys might be at the house. Clara returned to her own vehicle, her movements mechanical, her mind numb with the weight of what was happening. Once inside her car, with the door shut against the world, Clara finally allowed herself to feel the full force of her despair. Tears flowed freely as she pounded the steering wheel again, this time in anger rather than panic. How could I let this happen? She whispered to the empty car. How now? Her gaze fell on her purse, sitting on the passenger seat. The bottle of pills she'd taken from home seemed to call to her, promising instant relief from the overwhelming stress. With shaking hands, Clara reached for the purse and withdrew the bottle. She opened the bottle and stared at the remaining half-tablet from earlier, then shook out a whole pill to join it. 1.5 doses would help numb the pain, she told herself, help her think more clearly. She placed the pills on her tongue and swallowed. But then, after a moment, when she began to feel the effect, a wave of self-disgust crashed over her. Was this really who she wanted to be? This was an emergency. Clara needed to be steady if she was going to save Ella, but her nerves were spiraling out of control. Trying to rationalize her choice, she broke the tablet in half. A smaller dose wouldn't be too risky, she told herself. Just enough to calm her, to help her focus without affecting her ability to drive. She swallowed the half-tablet dry, waiting for the familiar wave of calm. Within minutes, her racing heart slowed and her thoughts cleared. The panic receded, replaced by determined focus. With steady hands, Clara started the car and left the campground, pushing herself to reach home faster than usual. The house felt unsettlingly quiet when she entered. She went straight to the master bedroom, where a small fireproof lockbox held their important documents. Her hands shook as she tried the combination, failing twice before finally opening it. Inside were passports, ID cards, insurance papers, and Ella's records, birth certificate, school and health information. Clara gathered Ella's documents into a folder, her mind racing. Why does Brandon want these? Is he planning to take Ella away out of state, maybe even out of the country? I won't let that happen, she whispered fiercely. Time was slipping away. Fairview was 30 minutes in the opposite direction. She tucked the folder into her bag, took a breath, and headed back to the car. The Grand Calf in Fairview was cheerful, its yellow awning bright against the street. Next to it, a playground buzzed with children's laughter. Clara parked across the street, scanning for Brandon's camper van, but only a sleek black car sat by the curb. Then she spotted Ella in the sandbox, smiling and carefree. Relief surged till it was crushed just as quickly. A woman, Anne, noticed her. With practiced swiftness, she ushered Ella indoors, as though she'd been expecting Clara. At least she's safe, Clara murmured, leaving the folder in her car. She wouldn't hand it over unless absolutely necessary. Crossing the street, Clara met Anne face to face. Polished, composed, with dark hair and designer glasses, she looked like someone who belonged to a different world. Anne, Clara said coolly. He's waiting inside, Anne replied, leading her toward a private room. Inside, Brandon sat at a table. He looked different than before Lina, with neatly styled hair and a trimmed beard. He still carried the same charm, though it now seemed sharpened by time. Clara, he greeted, his tone smooth. It's been a long time. Clara ignored the pleasantries. Where's Ella? She's fine. You saw her yourself. Anne will keep her busy. While we talk, what do you want, Brandon? She asked, sitting across from him but keeping her guard up. He leaned forward, eyes locked on hers. I want you to tell Ella the truth, that I'm her father. I want her to live with me. That's impossible, Clara shot back. You can't just reappear after years and demand you'd still see her, Brandon cut in smoothly. Once a week, supervised. Meanwhile, I get to raise my daughter. It's fair, and if I refuse? Clara challenged, though she feared the answer. Then I bring up everything from your past, Brandon said calmly. Your mistakes, the struggles you went through. Things that wouldn't look good if anyone official saw them. You'd lose. Her anyway. Clara's anger flared. You weren't perfect either, Brandon. We were both reckless. We weren't ready to be parents. The difference, Brandon replied, his voice cool, is that I've rebuilt myself. I've been stable for years. I'm the better choice for Ella now. He leaned back, his tone final. Here's what happens. Tonight, Ella stays with me. You explain who I am, Tomorrow, you don't pick her up. You can visit her on Saturday. Clara's chest tightened. She had no good options. Reluctantly, she nodded. Fine, I'll tell her. They walked back to the playground. Ella spotted Clara and ran into her arms, joy lighting up her face. Clara held her tightly, her heart aching. Hi, sweetie, having fun? Ella grinned. Mr. Grant and Miss Anne took me camping. We saw deer and roasted marshmallows. Clara forced a smile, then took a deep breath. Ella, I need to tell you something important. This man, his name isn't really Mr. Grant. His name is Brandon. And he's your father, from when you were a tiny baby. Ella blinked, confused. But Daddy Michael is my daddy. Yes, Michael is your daddy too, Clara explained gently. But Brandon is also your dad. Ella thought about it. So, I have two daddies. Yes, Clara said, relieved at her daughter's calmness. Ella looked at Brandon with curiosity. Do you have toys? I do, Brandon smiled. And a swimming pool. Ella's face lit up, then fell again. But I want Mummy to come too. Clara's heart broke. I can't stay tonight, sweetie, but I'll see you tomorrow. When Ella began to protest, Clara quickly added, Okay, I'll come with you to Daddy Brandon's house. Then I'll leave after. Is that okay? Ella nodded reluctantly. Good, Brandon said softly, then whispered to Clara, Don't forget her documents. Cooperator, I involve lawyers. Clara said nothing, her chest heavy. She watched Ella climb into Brandon's car, her excitement masking the gravity of the situation. Back in her own car, Clara broke down. Tears streamed as she pounded the steering wheel. How could I let this happen? She whispered. Her gaze fell on her purse. The pill bottle she'd brought seemed to call to her. With trembling hands, she opened it, staring at the half-tablet from earlier. Then she shook out another, staring at both. 1.5 would dull the pain, she thought. She swallowed them. Quickly, for a brief moment, numbness spread through her. But then the shame hit harder. Is this really who I want to be? When I tried calling you and couldn't reach you, I got worried. He reached out and took her hand. But it was Ella who saved you. After Brandon attacked you, she called 911, told them her mummy needed help. Clara turned to Ella in amazement. You called 911, sweetheart. Ella nodded proudly. Like you taught me. I used the phone in the kitchen when the scary man hurt you. I don't want him to be my daddy. I love Michael. Tears welled in Clara's eyes as the weight of it all hit her. How close she'd come to losing everything, and how her daughter's quick thinking had saved her. She pulled Ella close, voice trembling. You're such a smart, brave girl, she whispered. And yes, sweetheart, one daddy, Michael, is more than enough for us. The police arrived just as Brandon and Anne were trying to flee with Ella. Michael continued. They're both in custody now. A knock at the door interrupted them. To police. Officers entered, nodding politely to the family. Mrs. Beaumont, one of them began. We're glad to see you awake. I'm Investigator Williams, and this is Officer Grant. We'd like to ask you some questions about what happened today. If you're feeling up to it. Clara nodded cautiously, mindful of her throbbing head. Of course, we were able to apprehend Brandon Miller and Ann Miller as they were attempting to leave the house with your daughter, Investigator Williams explained. They're both in custody now, facing multiple charges, including kidnapping, assault, and false imprisonment. We also located the camper van they used at the campsite. Officer Grant added, it was abandoned in an empty warehouse about 10 miles from the Fairview town center. Based on the tire tracks and timeline, they arrived there approximately 30 minutes after leaving the campground with your daughter. That must be where they switched to their family car, Clara said, pieces falling into place. Brandon always kept an Audi sedan in the garage. They probably left the camper to avoid detection since you would have been looking for it. Investigator Williams nodded. That matches our theory. We found some of Ella's belongings in the camper. A stuffed rabbit and some drawings she did at the campsite. Mr. Bunny, Ella exclaimed. I thought I lost him. We'll make sure you get him back, sweetheart. Officer Grant assured her with a smile. The investigator turned back to Clara. Now, Mrs. Beaumont, your husband mentioned that Mr. Miller contacted you at the campsite. Can you tell us about that conversation? Clara took a deep breath, knowing what she had to do. Actually, there's something I need to tell you first. She glanced at Michael apologetically. Something I should have told everyone a long time ago. Michael frowned, confused. Clara, what are you talking about? The reason I didn't report Brandon immediately when I saw him in that photo, Clara began, her voice trembling, is because he blackmailed and threatened me. He said if I went to the police, he would tell them about my past. She turned to the officers. 5 years ago, before I was married to Michael, I stole money from the company I worked for, about $15,000. I used it to feed my drug addiction and pay off debts. I manipulated the company's books, and innocent employees were fired, based on suspicion. The officers exchanged glances. Investigator Williams beginning to take notes. When Brandon went to prison for attacking me, he didn't tell the police about what I'd done. He said it was for Ella's sake, so she wouldn't be born with her mother in jail. But now he's using it against me to try to take her away. Michael's face had gone pale. Clara, why didn't you tell me? I was ashamed, she admitted, tears streaming down her face, and afraid I'd lose you and Ella if you knew the truth. She turned back to the officers. I understand I'll be prosecuted for what I did. I'm prepared to face the consequences. I just need to know that my daughter will be safe while I'm gone. The officers questioned her more deeply about the embezzlement. Dates, amounts, methods, taking detailed notes for their report. You will face charges for these crimes, Investigator Williams confirmed. We'll need to coordinate with the Financial Crimes Division. As for your daughter, that will be up to the family court to decide. If there's any statement from my therapist about my recovery, Clara asked hesitantly, will the court consider that when determining custody, it will certainly be taken into account, the investigator assured her. If you've maintained sobriety and shown genuine rehabilitation, that will work in your favor. Clara nodded, relief mingling with her anxiety. At least there was hope. After the police left, promising to return the next day for a formal statement, Clara turned to Michael, expecting anger or disappointment. Instead, he was looking at her with a complex mixture of emotions. Why didn't you tell me? He asked again, his voice soft. I was so afraid of losing you both, Clara admitted. I thought if you knew everything I'd done, you wouldn't want me anymore. Michael shook his head. We've been through so much together, Clara. We've fought our demons side by side. Did you really think I'd abandon you over something that happened before we were married? I don't know, Clara whispered. I just couldn't bear the thought of losing you or Ella. Mummy, Ella spoke up, her small face serious. Are you going away? Clara swallowed hard, looking into her daughter's innocent eyes. For a little while, sweetie, I did something wrong a long time ago, and now I need to make it right. Will you come back? Ella's voice quavered. Of course I will, Clara promised, squeezing her daughter's hand. And while I'm gone, you'll stay with Daddy, Michael, and Grandma and Grandpa. They'll take good care of you. Ella considered this, then asked, what about the other man? Is he still my dad, too? Clara exchanged a glance with Michael before answering carefully. Brandon is your biological father, yes, but Michael is your dad in all the ways that really matter. He loves you and takes care of you every day. Ella nodded, seemingly satisfied with this explanation. As Clara watched her daughter snuggle against Michael's chest, a strange sense of peace settled over her, despite the uncertainty of her future. She had finally faced her past and told the truth. Whatever consequences came, she would face them with the knowledge that she was finally doing the right thing. Sometimes love meant making difficult choices. Sometimes it meant sacrificing your own freedom to ensure your child's safety and well-being. And sometimes it meant finding the courage to be honest, no matter how painful the truth might be. For the first time in years, Clara felt worthy of her daughter's love. Not because she was perfect, far from it, but because she had finally found the strength to be honest, to take responsibility, and to put Ella's needs above her own fears. That she realized was what being a mother truly meant. That's it for tonight's story. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Sleep tight, and I'll see you in the next one.